I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Thou shalt rise again.
Power to make multitudes run squealing in terror at the touch of my little invisible finger.
Do you believe in werewolves? To a new world of gods and monsters.
Hey guys, welcome back to Eternal Midnight. I'm here with Ken as usual.
Hey, happy to be back again.
Awesome. So Ken, what are we talking this time? Is it another terrifying, just tale of terror, another monster, an unstoppable demon? What do we got this week?
No. Today we've got as it's listed on IMDb, the comedy, romance, sci-fi, The Invisible Woman.
The comedy romance. And you know what? You told me this was a comedy going into it. I'm not, at first I was like, oh, really? I was like, I don't really want a comedy when I'm trying to like enjoy these horror films, but you know what? This was a nice, I'm not saying like I was getting sick of the horror movies, but it's like this was a nice breath of fresh air. Like
it's a nice change of pace.
I had a lot of fun with this film. I really liked the Invisible Woman herself. She was a pretty good lead in my opinion.
Yeah, I think she's really funny. I think she's a good actress, and I think she's gorgeous. Virginia Bruce.
Mm-hmm. I love how she and like the main male lead, like him being a playboy, like the whole time before he ever saw her, they were just like complete dicks to each other.
The banter there is great.
Yup. You know what it reminded me of? Where I almost feel like we took some inspiration from that? Spaceballs.
Yes.
Before
absolutely.
Lone Star and the princess met each other, they're both just sitting there trash talking each other, and the second they see each other, they're both like, oh. Damn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also want to say another actor I want to call out is Professor Gibbs, played by John Barrymore, which, I mean, should we share with everyone the history of the Barrymore family?
Is he her dad?
Or grandfather?
Grandfather, okay.
So, John Barrymore is Drew Barrymore's grandfather. His son is John Drew Barrymore, who was an actor, and then he had his daughter Drew Barrymore, and also John Barrymore's brother is Lionel Barrymore, who was Mr. Potter in my favorite Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
Jeez, dude,
and also John Barrymore's either mother, I think.
Dude, they have their own Wikipedia page.
Oh yeah, the Barrymore family.
I literally clicked on John Barrymore's name to just see that if it was his father, and it's a link, relatives, see Barrymore family. And it's like this giant like thing that's like right out of that scene in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where Sirius is like going over his gigantic family tree.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's really crazy. I think John Barrymore's grandmother was in a play with John Wilkes Booth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Barrymore family has long been in show business.
I would say the first one they're looking at, William Edward Blythe, goes back to 1818.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lionel Barrymore.
Long family history of show business in the Barrymore family.
No kidding. Well, you know what? Drew's still around. If they could do, Young Frankenstein taking place long after.
Oh my goodness!
Let's do another Invisible Woman with Drew Barrymore.
Let's bring it around, baby. Oh, and also, another horror connection that John Barrymore has, and we could talk about this one if you're interested, because you have the same box that I have of those 50 horror classics that are all public domain. He was in the silent version. He played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yep. I'm looking at it right now on his page. Yep. No kidding. I don't even think I ever got to that one.
It's good. It's not Universal. It's it's in public domain. I'm not sure who produced it, but
that was one of those box sets I grabbed because I wanted the Screaming Skull. after watching James Rolfe's review. And I'm like
Oh,
looking
yeah?
at it, and I saw it at the used store, and I'm like, it's $10 for 50 movies, and it's got the Screaming Skull. And then I bring it home, and I'm looking through it. I was like, there's a lot of good stuff in here. But I've still
Night of the
never
Living Dead,
gotten around to.
Nosferatu.
I've still never gotten around to watching all of it. You know what? We should almost do that box set someday.
Oh, at some point, yeah. Oh man, that would be.
That
We'd
would
have
be
to
cool.
swim through a lot of shit for those
Right.
gold nuggets that are there. But anyways, so one thing I want to say about The Invisible Woman that I really like is being that it's 1940 and it's a woman leading. I think what's really funny about this, and we mentioned the humor in this when we were first talking about The Invisible Man, is the fact that invisibility, part of what makes it interesting is nudity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they can never bring themselves to say the word naked in this movie. Like when his assistant, who you called out, is played by the Wicked Witch of the West, Margaret Hamilton.
She was awesome. And she
she's great
so
in it.
downplayed it. I was like, I'm not saying like I expected her to be typecast to be like a bitch. Like
But it's just naturally.
right. I just like expected her to still be like Elmira Gulch, where she was just like a complete bitch, but she was like the straight person of this entire. She was like the only normal person out of all these characters.
She was. Yeah, she actually was. She was like the one like person that's like, oh, that's an actual human being.
Right,
No,
and
but-
everybody else was like just completely over the top. It was like,
Yeah.
shit. I mean, this was like, this movie had the mob in it, for Christ's sake, or the
and
cartel.
And there's another actor there that we'll bring up, but I just wanted to say, like, when she first tells him, like, hey, there's a person here for you, and he's just like, all right, send him down. He's just like, it's a her, but I can't do my experiments unless the, subject is in the all together. And then when he's talking to the Playboy guy who's funding his projects, he's just like, wait, so is she? Yes, she certainly is. Like, they can never say the word naked.
Maybe they couldn't. Maybe
Well-
it was just a taboo thing or some reason. 'Cause, I
Well, but they
otherwise-
keep,
I
but they're
can't-
heavily suggesting it.
because I can't. Maybe they were. Maybe it was just still taboo though, because I'm not going to take credit away. I don't think they would have been clever enough to be like, don't say it for comedic reasons. Maybe they did, but
See, that's what I
can't
think. I
see
think
it.
I think yeah, for comedic reasons they
Maybe?
wanted
Okay.
to avoid it, or maybe
Because maybe
Maybe,
it was
yeah.
still a taboo thing back then, and it was just like, you don't talk about a woman being naked. You just don't do it.
you know what I ultimately think. I think it's probably a combination of the two, in that they probably said, hey, we don't want you saying the word naked, and they're like, all right, well, we're gonna dance around it as much as we can then.
Because she was naked. I mean, and it's like, all right. But they did do a decent amount of like almost sexualization, though, if you think about it.
The scene when she's like when she's
Putting her
putting on the
stockings back on. Yeah, definitely. She's like, "Are you looking at my legs?" And it's like, okay, yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I remember there was a decent amount of dialogue where she like, I bet you were expecting like fatter legs or something. Like she was saying something where she's like, he was not expecting her to look good at all.
yeah, and because he even said, he's just like, well, any woman who would want to make herself invisible can't be much on the eyes. I'm like, oh, 1940s dialogue.
Oh, you want 1940s? Her boss.
Oh.
Good luck treating women that way in
Probably.
today's world.
Yeah, no. Also, weird thing about her job, I'm like, do models punch time clocks? Like, I never, was that a thing in 1940?
Until they walked out to show that they were models, I thought her job was like the old school. Well, I thought her job was one of those like old school department stores where like they worked at the jewelry counter, or they worked in the fashion department, and he was like the floor manager or something. But then they come out in their models, and like you said, I don't know models who have time cards.
Yeah, no. Weird thing. But okay, so I actually want to ask your opinion on this. because
Mhm.
this is something I've always felt, and my buddy Matt, who hosts Film Feast, he agrees with me on this. I want to talk about like where the plot goes, but for me personally, when comedy is the one genre where I care a lot less about the plot.
Yeah, it depends if it's depends how funny it is.
My
To me,
reason
at
for that
least.
is my reason for that is okay, I'm already not taking the movie too seriously. I say just give me the yucks and I'm happy. But if it's got a good plot, that's bonus points.
I think it does come down to the type of comedy. If we're looking at something like, if I'm looking at Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's story first, comedy second, you need to give
Mhm.
me a good story. If it's something like mm, uh, Young Frankenstein, I don't need to. If there's continuity
Yeah.
issues, if there's problems with this character
Yeah.
was standing there and the next scene they're standing over there, I don't care. I really
Yeah.
don't at that point.
Yeah, and that's fair because I mean, and you've heard me say this, my favorite movie of all time is Jimmy Stewart classic Harvey, which is a comedy from the 50s, from 1950 exactly, actually. And I mean, I love that movie because it's so just the plot is just so lovely and so well written, and that's why I love that so much. But so what did you think when the plot actually got going and there are like these gangsters that want the secret to invisibility so that they can rob banks and all of that more easily?
it it was just goofy for the sake of it, but it was fine because it's like, am I supposed to take these gangsters seriously when it's like they've been chased off by the Invisible Woman, and the first time they get the invisibility machine, they forget to do one thing, and the adverse effects of it is it makes your voice go up like 2 octaves.
Yeah, which is just such a strange
It's
little.
like, so it doesn't make
little
you
thing.
invisible, it makes you like talk like this the rest of the film, and it's like,
Yeah,
that's the point also where it was like, I can't take these gangsters serious because
well, and you can contest we're not supposed to because I mean, Chad, I'll let you say what iconic actor plays one of those gangsters?
Shemp Howard of the Three Stooges.
Yep, who I've always thought is sort of an underrated stooge.
Yeah, because most people know Curly, and
Yep.
I mean, I don't speak for everyone, but I almost feel like you almost have to be like a Three Stooges, like, I don't want to say aficionado, but I want to say you've almost got to be a hardcore Stooge fan to really know who Shemp is, because
Yeah.
like growing up back in the day when like they would actually play Three Stooges on cable, it was always Curly who was with
Well, I
Larry
think-
and Moe,
I
and
think they
nobody
still do it. Sorry, go.
I was just saying nobody ever really referenced Shemp until like like retro era, or until like
Yeah.
DVDs and stuff. But it was like I had a friend whose dad knew about it, and occasionally I'd hear him
Mhm.
say it, and I'm like, "Who's this Shemp he's talking about? What's
Yeah.
Shemp?"
And I think also you probably remember like those old Scooby Doo cartoons where he would meet a celebrity of the week. And yeah, there was the ones where they brought in the Three Stooges. And it's actually funny because that was Larry, Moe, and Curly Joe, who was like a totally new stooge. But as a kid, I always just thought that was Curly. But
Hey, it's a cartoon. You could have put anyone in it.
anyways, no, but I think the Three Stooges, I think they still play that on AMC like every New Year's even day.
I haven't
but
had cable and geez.
yeah, no, I mean, that was just back when I was living with my parents. Like my dad and I would always either watch that on New Year's, or the Sci-Fi Channel had the Twilight Zone marathon, and we would always watch that.
Nice. And now you can watch it on Netflix.
Yep, and I've also got the entire DVD set. So
Of the Twilight Zone?
yep,
Nice. Because I don't
Yep.
think Netflix has all of it. I think it's
No,
got
season
most, but not
4.
all.
it doesn't have season 4.
Hmm.
Skipped it for some reason. Anyways, let's just get sidetracked again.
As we always do. But no, I really did like Virginia Bruce as Kitty. I genuinely thought she was a very good lead. I thought she was one. I mean, not to sound shallow, she was good looking. But she also had a good, strong personality for a character from a 1940s movie.
Yeah, and that's actually something that we briefly brought up in the female lead in The Mummy's Hand. You know, she was sort of no nonsense and took charge, and I kind of liked that representation here as like a woman in 1940, you know, sort of getting back at her dick boss and, you know, having a fun time doing it.
And taking the lead and being the one to beat the cartel.
And save the day, exactly, yeah.
Shoot, this could be the first female hero. What do you think?
One of them, definitely.
Yeah. This was Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor before those movies.
Yeah.
Kitty Carroll.
Eat your heart out, Laurie Strode. No. It's funny that this movie has sort of been forgotten. And you know, it's so funny. That one thing we were complaining about The Invisible Man Returns is it didn't feel like a monster movie. It felt like a spy espionage. But, you know, I read the description of The Invisible Woman before, and I told you, so you knew before. I knew going in this was a comedy, so I knew what to expect. So this one didn't disappoint me, and I like this one a lot.
Definitely. And like we said, even with being a comedy, it still threw stuff in there that had a little more of like the depth to it. Like that, the two going back and forth of him being, oh, you're just like a ugly fat woman. And then seeing her, it's like, oh, she's not. And then she kicks ass and saves the day and apparently can go invisible whenever she drinks from now on.
Yes. I thought that was so strange that, and I thought it was funny. Also, for the time, she acts drunk very well.
She might have been.
She might have been. Yeah.
If not, she did a damn good job. Playing being wasted.
Yeah. Also, just as I really like the final gag where we sort of get a flash forward where she and what's his name, Richard Russell, where she and Richard have had a kid, and they put some rubbing alcohol on the baby and it disappears, and the professor is just like, hereditary.
We left out one of like my favorite characters who was like some of the best comedy relief. The butler.
Oh yeah.
He was like the butt of every single joke.
The guy, he's just like, sir, we're all packed away. Well, unpack because we're staying. Okay, sir, we're all unpacked. Well, pack them up because we're leaving. That's one of my favorite comedic tropes is like the guy who just can't get a break because he'll just do a whole thing. Now he's got to do the whole thing again. One of my favorites.
I agree because the movie started out with a pratfall. He's coming up the stairs and he just falls and then he gets a door slammed into his face. It's like, yes. Yep. It's like,
he's the punching bag.
It's like, I love stuff like that. They did such a good job with it. And then like that, even the back and forth between the professor and Mrs. Jackson, the Wicked Witch of the West. Even the back and forth between them was awesome because it was like, he's like that old school, I have no time for women nonsense. And she's like, well, you hired me. You've got to deal with me.
Yeah. The that little banter they have is just like, it's just like, it's a her. She's like, it's a her. And he's just like, you mean like skirts and things? Like the way he like says, like, who would refer to a woman in that way, like skirts and things? Yeah, skirts and things.
You know what? So like, it's weird. Like, obviously, I'm not gonna put this up there with like, you know, like Bride of Frankenstein or anything, but it's like, this is such an underrated, even just comedy film. It feels like in general, like there's so much to like about this film.
Yeah. I would watch this again several times over.
Oh, this is something like if a friend was like, oh, I'm in the mood to watch something funny, and they've told me they're like, I don't watch older movies, I'd be like, just try this. Let's see what you think.
Or if someone like is a fan of like this era of comedy, I think this fits in perfectly.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's see. Have you got anything else for this, or are you good?
We said,
I forgot something. They did say at the beginning when Kitty first went out and the customer like grabbed her skirt and like didn't just like tear it, like full on ripped it off of her. She's like, oh, look what you've done. And the lady was like, oh, how dare your worker talk to me this way? And her boss was the customer's always right. And she was like, no, the customer isn't always right. I was like, why is that phrase still around? If
anyone who says the customer is always right,
they've been saying it since 1940. The customer isn't always right.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that they threw it in this movie means they were saying that phrase before this movie.
Anyone who says that has never worked in customer service ever.
Nope.
Ever.
You've never worked retail. You've never worked customer service. You've never waited tables. Nothing.
Exactly. No. So, like we said, a funny comedy of its era, and with a pretty strong leading lady. So, kind of forward thinking in that regard. So,
and another one. It's only 70 minutes. It's only going to take up
what do you have to lose?
It's only going to take up a little over an hour of your time.
Exactly. So, bravo to Universal on this one.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that wraps up The Invisible Woman. The next one we got coming up is one of Ken's favorites. So
yes, it is.
We will find out what that is in 2 weeks.
It'll be a howl, everyone.
Nice pun. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Take it easy.